Well, welcome back to Whole Bible Study with me, Taddy Noy. And today we step into a chapter that's rich with symbolism, artistry, and purpose. Exodus chapter 28. By now, Israel is camped at the foot of Mount Sinai. God has already given instructions for building the tabernacle, the sacred dwelling place for his presence among the people. But the tabernacle is not just a building. It's a space where God will meet his people through the ministry of the priests. In this chapter, God gives Moses detailed instructions for the priestly garments, clothing that was far more than fabric. These garments carried theological meaning, historical continuity, and cultural symbolism. Every thread, every gem, every stitch was a sermon in itself. As we read, notice how God integrates Israel's tribal history into these garments, reminding them that their identity, worship, and leadership are all tied together in his presence. So now let's begin. Exodus chapter 28. Bring Aaron your brother and his sons with him near to you from among the children of Israel, that he may minister to me in the priest's office. Even Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar, Aaron's sons. You shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother, for glory and for beauty. You shall speak to all who are wise-hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they make Aaron's garments to sanctify him, that he may minister to me in the priest's office. These are the garments which they shall make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a tunic of checker work, a turban, and a sash. They shall make holy garments for Aaron your brother and his sons, that he may minister to me in the priest's office. They shall use gold and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen. They shall make the ephod of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine twined linen, the work of skilled workmen. It shall have 2 shoulder straps joined to the ends of it, and it may be joined together. The skillful woven band which is on it, with which to bind it, shall be like its work, and of the same piece of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine twined linen. You shall take 2 onyx stones and engrave on them the names of the children of Israel, 6 of their names on the one stone, and the names of the 6 that remain on the other stone, in the order of their birth, with the work of an engraver in stone. Like the engravings of a signet, you shall engrave the 2 stones according to the names of the children of Israel. You shall make them enclosed in settings of gold. You shall put the 2 stones on the shoulder straps of the ephod, to be stones of memorial for the children of Israel. Aaron shall bear their names before Yahweh on his 2 shoulders for a memorial. You shall make settings of gold and 2 chains of pure gold. You shall make them like cords of braided work, and you shall put the braided chains on the settings. You shall make the breastplate of judgment, the work of the skillful workman. Like the work of the ephod, you shall make it of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine twined linen. You shall make it. It shall be square and folded double. A span shall be its length, and a span its width. You shall set in it its setting of stones, 4 rows of stones. A row of ruby, topaz, and beryl shall be on the first row, and on the second row turquoise, a sapphire, and an emerald. And on the third row, a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And on the fourth row, a chrysolite, an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be enclosed in gold in their settings. The stones shall be according to the names of the children of Israel, 12, according to their names, like the engravings of the signet, every one according to his name. They shall be for the 12 tribes. You shall make on the breastplate chains like cords of braided work of pure gold. You shall make on the breastplate 2 rings of gold, and shall put on the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. You shall put the 2 braided chains of gold in the 2 rings at the ends of the breastplate. The other 2 ends of the 2 braided chains you shall put on the 2 settings, and put them on the shoulder straps of the ephod. In its front you shall make 2 rings of gold, and you shall put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate, on its edge, which is toward the side of the ephod inward. You shall make 2 rings of gold, and shall put them on the 2 shoulder straps of the ephod underneath. In its front, close by its coupling above the skillful woven band of the ephod. They shall bind the breastplate by its rings to the rings of the ephod with the lace of blue, that it may be on the skillful woven band of the ephod, and that the breastplate may not come loose from the ephod. Aaron shall bear the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment on his heart when he goes into the holy place for a memorial before Yahweh continually. You shall put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be on Aaron's heart when he goes before Yahweh. Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel on his heart before Yahweh continually. Quote, you shall make the robe of the ephod of all blue. It shall have a hole for the head in its middle. It shall have a binding of woven work around its hole, as it were the hole of the coat of mail, and that it not be torn. On its hem you shall make pomegranates of blue, of purple, and of scarlet around its hem, and bells of gold between and around them. A golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate around the hem of the robe. It shall be on Aaron to minister, and to its sound shall be heard when he goes in to the holy place before Yahweh, and when he comes out, that he will not die. Quote, you shall make a plate of pure gold and engrave on it, like the engravings of a signet, quote, holy to Yahweh. You shall put it on the lace of blue, and it shall be on the sash. It shall be on the front of the turban. It shall be on Aaron's forehead, and Aaron shall bear the iniquity of the holy things, which the children of Israel shall make holy in all their holy gifts. And it shall always be on his forehead, that they may be accepted before Yahweh. You shall weave the tunic in checker work of fine linen, and you shall make a turban of fine linen, and you shall make a sash, the work of an embroiderer. You shall make tunics for Aaron's sons. You shall make sashes for them, and you shall make headbands for them for glory and for beauty. You shall put them on Aaron your brother and on his sons with him, and shall anoint them and consecrate them, and minister to me in the priest's office. You shall make them linen pants to cover their naked flesh. They shall reach from the waist even to the thighs. They shall be on Aaron and on his sons when they go into the tent of meeting, or when they come near to the altar or minister in the holy place, that they bear no iniquity and not die. It shall be a statute forever to him and for his offspring after him. Now for the deep dive on Exodus 28. Exodus 28 is one of those chapters where the text almost reads like a visual feast. It is full of color, precious stones, gold, fine linen, and intricate design. And while to the modern reader it might seem like a little long list of clothing specifications in the ancient Near East world, garments were not just fashion. They were identity, authority, and theology stitched into fabric. This chapter tells us how God instructed the creation of the priestly garments for Aaron and his sons, setting them apart in the both role and appearance. The detail is extraordinary because in Israel's worldview, holiness was to be seen as well as understood. The priests were living symbols of God's holiness, his covenant, and his relationship with his people. Their very clothing proclaimed God's glory and Israel's story. To begin with, we have to remember the cultural context of priestly attire in the ancient world. Egyptian priests, for example, also wore distinct garments, while often white linen to symbolize purity. In Mesopotamia, high officials and cultic personnel also wore garments adorned with symbolic designs that reflected their deities' attributes or the myths associated with them. In this case, the priestly garments of Israel fit into a broader cultural practice, yet they stood out because they were rooted in God's direct instructions, not merely in human creativity or royal decree. These garments were, quote, for glory and for beauty in verse 2, which in Hebrew, lakvod u letfaret, carries the sense of weighty honor and splendid adornment. This wasn't about dressing Aaron up to impress people. It was about visibly representing the glory and beauty of God's presence among his people. One of the most significant elements was the ephod. Think of it like a kind of ornate apron or vest made of gold, threads interwoven with blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. The colors themselves were not random. Blue, tekherelet, was associated with the heavens and divine authority, purple with royalty and wealth, and scarlet with sacrifice and life itself. Gold represented the unchanging nature of God and the richness of his covenant. On the ephod's shoulder pieces were 2 onyx stones, each engraved with the names of 6 tribes of Israel. This meant that when Aaron entered the presence of God, he literally carried the names of the people on his shoulders, a powerful symbol of intercession and representation. It is a deeply moving image. The high priest bore the weight of the nation before God. Then there is the breastplate of judgment. Not judgment in the sense of condemnation, but in the sense of decision-making and discernment. This square piece folded double and held 12 precious stones in 4 rows, each engraved with the name of one of its tribes of Israel. Archaeological parallels show that many cultures use gemstones in ceremonial or political settings, often as symbols of status or divine favor. But here, the breastplate also housed the mysterious Urim and Thummim, objects used to discern God's will in specific situations. Though we do not know exactly what they were, scholars like Jacob Malgrom have noticed that the priestly system, these served as sacred lots, a way of ensuring that decisions were made under God's direction. The fact that they were worn over Aaron's heart emphasizes the emotional and moral weight of spiritual leadership. Now, the breastplate is fascinating not just for its beauty, but for its anthropology. In ancient Israel, the heart was not merely the seat of emotion. It was the center of will, intention, and moral character. To wear the names of the tribes over the heart was to commit to leading them with integrity, compassion, and of course justice. It was a visual reminder that leadership was a matter of the heart as much as it was the mind. We also see pomegranates and gold bells along the hem of the priestly robe. Pomegranates were a common fertility symbol in the ancient Near East, but in Israel's context, they likely symbolized abundance, blessing, and fruitfulness that comes from God's covenant. The bells had a practical and symbolic purpose. Their sound would be heard when the high priest moved in and out of the holy place, a reminder of his presence before God, and perhaps a way to prevent irreverent intrusion. Some rabbinic traditions even suggest they served as a safeguard so that if the high priest was struck down for entering unworthy, his body could be retrieved. Though this is later tradition, not a biblical detail. One of the most profound symbols is the golden plate worn on Aaron's forehead, engraved with the words, quote, "Holy to Yahweh," Kadesh le Yahweh. This signified that the priest and by extension the people he represented belonged wholly to God. In anthropological terms, this is a boundary marker. It separated the sacred from the profane, and the consecrated from the common. It told the community and the world that this person in this role was dedicated entirely to the service of the Holy One. Culturally, these garments also served as a visible reminder of the covenantal identity of Israel. In a world where many nations had their own gods, priesthoods, and rituals, the Hebrew priesthood stood out because it was not about serving the whims of a deity through manipulation or magic. It was about faithfully carrying out God's revealed instructions as a part of relational covenant. Every time Aaron appeared in these garments, the people saw their history. The tribes named on stones, the colors of heaven and sacrifice, the symbols of fruitfulness and blessing, and they remembered who they were. From a theological perspective, the priestly garments also foreshadow the ultimate high priest, Jesus Christ. In the New Testament, the imagery of bearing the people's names before God, interceding for them, and being clothed in righteousness is applied to Christ's ministry. The book of Hebrews draws this connection explicitly, showing that what Aaron did in the tabernacle was a shadow of what Jesus does in the heavenly sanctuary. In this way, Exodus 28 not only speaks to the culture and worship of ancient Israel, but also to the broader story of God's redemption. There's also a leadership lesson embedded here. Spiritual authority is not about personal power or status, but instead about representation, service, and bearing the weight of others before God. Aaron's garments were not his personal uniform. They were Israel's history and identity woven into fabric. They reminded him that he did not stand before God for himself alone, but for the entire community. From an anthropological angle, this chapter illustrates how material culture, objects, clothing, colors, can carry meaning far beyond their practical use. In societies without mass media, visual symbols were the primary way of communicating values and history and identity. For Israel, the priest's garments were a walking reminder of God's covenant and embodied theology that the people could see, touch, and remember. And that's perhaps the most beautiful takeaway for us today. In God's design, even the details matter. Every stitch, every stone, every color carried meaning. Not because God delights in arbitrary rules, but because he delights in embedding truth into every part of life. Just as the high priest carried the names of Israel over his heart and on his shoulders, we are called to carry one another in love and prayer, representing each other before God. And in Christ, we too are called, quote, a royal priesthood, 1 Peter 2:9, and set apart to reflect his glory and beauty in the world. Friends, as we close our time in Exodus 28, I want to thank you deeply for walking through these vivid details with me. I know on the surface it can feel like we've just read a description of clothing, but I hope you've seen how every stitch carries a story and every color holds meaning. This chapter isn't just about garments. It's about God's heart to dwell with his people and to make his glory visible in their midst. It's about the weight of spiritual leadership, the responsibility to carry others before God with love, humility, and faithfulness. And I can't help but think how beautiful it is that in Christ we are now part of that royal priesthood. We may not wear gold thread. we may not wear gold thread or gemstones, but we carry his name on our hearts, and his spirit clothes us with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and love. The garments may have changed, but the calling remains to be a living reminder of God's presence and grace in the world. So I'm so grateful you joined me for this deep dive. It's a gift to explore these passages with you, to connect history and theology with reality of our lives today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If anything stood out to you in this chapter, was it in the symbolism or the craftsmanship or the way that it points to Christ? Share the comments below, and let's continue to learn from one another. Thank you again for joining me with this deep dive for Exodus chapter 28, and we will see you in the next chapter tomorrow.